2,000, 3,000, 2,000, 1,000, and we are off. It is Atwood Unleashed 116, co-hosted by Stephen Knight. The world has gone mad. We have seen all this crazy stuff. In the Russell Brand story, it's just got bigger and bigger with Rumble, with UK Gov threatening Rumble, with Ofcom threatening to arrest Rumble owners. Now we've got Dan Wootton suspended by GB News after Lawrence Fox made derogatory comments about a female political journalist on his show, asking who would beep that. Yeah, absolutely mental. I watched it earlier. Me and Jen watched it. We were shaking our heads thinking, good grief, can a few words said on a live completely wipe out a platform such as GB News? Because Katie Hopkins is speculating that it could. I've watched her response video to it, and she is saying that they are coming after GB News. The lawyers can smell the blood in the water, and with these enhanced powers that Russell Brand is talking about with Ofcom and the laws that are coming into force next month, they're going to be monitoring not just the dinosaur media now, Ofcom. They're going to be monitoring YouTubers, especially politicians who go on YouTube, because there's laws pertaining to that, she said, that they can finagle and work with. So the laws are getting stricter and stricter on broadcasters, and Ofcom apparently has been criticised in the past as being softy. So now they may be looking to make a few examples out of people. Who do you think they will be coming for next? Russell, maybe? All right, so looking at this story, the channel had GB News suspended Fox and apologised for his remarks about Evans. His remarks have sparked widespread condemnation, including from Wootton, who apologised twice, saying he regretted the interview. What he did was he compounded the issue, because you could see the hamster wheel going in Wootton's brain as these remarks are being made. And because he's on the spot and because he's live, he's probably getting tense, and he smiles and kind of giggles, and it looks like he's encouraging what the other guy's saying. I actually think it was a nervous reaction because he was on the spot, and he was realising, he was actually, you could see the hamster wheel, he's realising, hold on a minute, this could go the complete opposite direction. And he kind of like cuts his giggling to say, I'm going to balance this out, but it was too late, because when you are live, what you publish live is what counts. The apology later, what you publish live does the damage under the eyes of the law, and that's what counts. And let's get Stephen Knight's take on this.
Yeah, that's a great point about going live. And I think the fact that he didn't push back on that comment in the moment does betray a lack of experience and professionalism, regardless of how difficult live news is. But I don't know if you remember when GB News was getting ready to launch, people were trying to nuke it before it even started. These kind of authoritarian identitarians trying to get its advertising pulled. They was arguing it was going to be some Goebbels-esque fascist enterprise. And I pushed back against all that. I thought that was ridiculous, hysteria, and, authoritarian. And now they've survived that. And it seems to me the people that may lead to the demise of GB News are most likely the people GB News pays to come on and speak on GB News. They're constantly getting slapped on the wrist from Ofcom in ways that other news media doesn't, because other news media, quite frankly, doesn't make the same mistakes. There is no way that comment would have gone unchallenged live on BBC or Sky News. For everything else they get wrong, from the misinformation, the ideological capture, they know how to walk that professional line, and that's what GB News keeps falling afoul of. So to GB News' fairness, they've unequivocally condemned these comments, and they've suspended both people involved. I don't see how GB News gets anywhere near an air of respectability or becomes a prominent challenge to mainstream media if it keeps people like that on the books. Unfortunately, it can either be what it was today all the time, or it can be something that challenges the mainstream media. It can't be both.
And people are often asking us why we euphemize, and why when we've got certain guests on, we cut them off, or we ask them to phrase things in certain ways. All it takes, that what happened today happened within a matter of seconds. All it takes is someone to open their mouth for a matter of seconds, and everything you've built in your entire life can melt down, because we are liable as the publishers of it.
Yeah.
So that it's an absolute minefield, and that's why you sometimes see us stressing and straining as we try to tiptoe through the minefield and guide our guests so that they don't say the wrong thing. And the guests are sometimes getting insulted because they can't say whatever they want. And some people think if you can't say the R word, that's derogatory to women who've been through the R word because we're softening it. But we're not. We are trying to just adhere to the laws that are becoming increasingly strict because there are people out there trying to wipe us off the face of the earth because we're independent news journalists. But going back to this story, so we've got the GB News story. It says the controversial actor remained defiant and shared what appeared to be a private text exchange about the segment between himself and Wotton, featuring laughing emojis. On the segment, Fox said, "We don't need these sort of feminist 4.0, and I'm not going to repeat the rest of it because I would be liable for publishing it." But it refers to not having physical relations with the woman. Wotton had been condemned for appearing to laugh at Fox's comments, but later apologised for a very unfortunate lapse in judgment on my part under the intense pressure of a bizarre exchange. Anything to add there, Stephen?
Yeah, I mean, but it goes back to this point essentially that it's not so much an issue of controlling the guest, which is difficult enough as it is on a live stream. If you're in the news media, you are regulated by Ofcom, and you're required to provide balance or pushback to certain types of argument. And because he failed to do that in any way, really, that could cost them money. That's what the bottom line comes down to. I don't know if you remember a while back, GB News had a contributor called Mark Stein. He got them a couple of Ofcom fines, if I remember correctly, to the point where GB News said, if you get us another fine in this manner, we're going to pass the invoice directly to you. And so Mark Stein left then, and now I think he just operates on sort of social media and YouTube. So, you know, it's not just a case of controlling the guests, it's a case of pushing back. But then again, that's journalism. They can either be journalists or they can be reactionaries and not give a full picture.
And that's how we balance our reporting, by bringing Mr. Stephen Knight in, a.k.a. Mr. Pushback.
Mr. Pushback. I like it.
So after GB News suspended Fox at 10 a.m, Fox shared the messages where he appeared to suggest were between him and Wotton. Posting the dialogue, Fox wrote above the conversation, "Honesty is the best policy." The apparent exchange began saying, "Making you giggle is my weekly joy." And then a response which said, "You can imagine them freaking out in the gallery." GB News then announced just before 4 p.m. today that Wotton has also been suspended, with a spokesman saying, "GB News has suspended Dan Wotton following comments made on his programme by Lawrence Fox last night. This follows our decision earlier today to formally suspend Mr. Fox. We are conducting a full investigation." Right, we need to squeeze in the lineup. So, here we go. We will be starting at 6. I've been promising everybody another commentary on Unleashed on Russell Brand, and we are. Ash has delivered. It's not going to be female panelists this week, though. We have postponed them, I think, till next week. But we've got 2 channel favourites. We've got Jay Dyer. He's going to talk about the links of Russell Brand allegations to legacy media and how the CIA used control of the media and arts to debase and control society while simultaneously running moral outrage campaigns against people who challenge them, like Assange or Russell Brand. Absolutely fascinating stuff. And Charlie Robinson also is dropping in, another fan favourite. And then Stephen takes over at 7.
Yeah, senior fellow at American University in Moscow, Matthew Eric will join us for the first time on Outward Unleashed. Matthew is also the founder of Canadian Patriot Review, Rising Tide Foundation, and author of the Untold Story of Canada series. Tonight's focus will be on the expansion of BRICS, B-R-I-C-S, and what that means for the United States, followed at 7:30 by YouTuber and director Ryder Lee and writer Jay Widener. They'll drop by to tell us about a new JFK documentary just in time for the 60th anniversary of his assassination. Using new technology, the filmmakers show what is really going on in the famous Zapruder film of the assassination of the 35th President of the United States, John F. Kennedy. Followed up by street epistemologist, street epistemologist Anthony Magnabosco. Anthony engages in civil conversations with individuals to uncover the reasoning behind their deeply held beliefs. Through thoughtful questioning, he examines the reliability of the methods used to form these beliefs and explore what alternate avenues for maintaining confidence in them. His intellectual journey aims to bridge the gap between belief and reality, fostering critical thinking along the way. Anthony's great. I know a lot of his work, very Socratic. And then we'll be speaking to Harvard professor Tommy Shelby. He'll be the final guest on YouTube this evening. He is the Caldwell Titcomb Professor in the Department of African and African American Studies and the Department of Philosophy at Harvard, where he's taught for more than 20 years. His newest book is The Idea of Prison Abolition, which is based on lectures he delivered at Princeton University in 2018.
And then finally, we have got a pre-record on locals. I don't know if you guys saw the original video that Richard Kerr did about the King Cora Boys Home. It went viral. Absolutely heartbreaking. He's seeking justice for the horrific crimes that were committed on the boys at the hands of those monsters. So if you want to watch that interview, please join our locals community. We've got over 1,000 on it now. It's free to join. It's free to come on and comment and post stuff. And we've got a great community going on over there. And the link is in the description box below this video. And I can't wait to speak to Richard. It's been a while. But oh my goodness, what he's been through. It's absolutely mind-blowing. So we have got 4 minutes left before these guests come in. Just looking at the comments in the chat, please. Ziggy's asleep right now. I just checked, so I don't want to disrupt him. What other subjects have you been covering on your Substack, Stephen?
Mainly just Russell Brand, like everybody else, to be honest. Though I think it's an interesting development that, I mean, a lot of these supporters have raised the perfectly valid point that it's innocent till proven guilty, and these accusations need to go to the police and through the courts. And it looks like they may be getting their wish in that regard. It looks like there have been official complaints and the police might take action at some point. So we'll wait for that news story when it breaks.
All right, cheers. Looks like the first guests are coming in, Stephen. So we'll see you at 7. Thank you, my friend.
Have a good one. Cheers.
Hey, Jay, how's it going, man?
Hey, Sean. Glad to be back with you. It's good to be here. Doing well. Thanks for having me back. This is a hot topic, so I've seen some of your coverage. I've been enjoying your takes.
Thanks. Really appreciate you joining us. I think Charlie Robinson is going to jump on as well, but while we're waiting for him, do you want to just tell the viewers a little bit about you and where they can find you?
Yeah, I do a lot of similar podcasting to stuff that you talk about. I talk about true crime. I've been doing some podcasts with your friend Sammy the Bull. You might have heard of him.
I saw that.
The Underboss. Yeah, so I cover geopolitical topics, history. I did a long discussion yesterday on the history of the Galen organization and the Western intelligence agencies, how they've tied in with a lot of the networks that they claim to be opposed to. People can probably figure out what I'm talking about. But we do a lot of movie analysis. We do breakdowns of books, history, philosophy, literature, and you can find me over at Jay's Analysis and over at my channel, Jay Dyer.
And here's Charlie Robinson. Do you want to introduce yourself a little bit again, Charlie?
Sure. I'm the host of the Macroaggressions podcast, now available on Rumble, and author of several books, including The Octopus of Global Control and The Controlled Demolition of the American Empire. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so as promised, viewers, we are going to be covering the Russell Brand case with Jay and Charlie, and I'd like to just start off saying, you know, in the beginning when this case broke, it was all the R word and all this stuff, all these allegations, the accusers, and it looked like it was going to go from being a case of him maybe getting charged criminally and it going to court and the news reporting on that. But then all of a sudden, we've got Dane Caroline Dimage sending letters to various social media platforms saying, are you going to jump on, demonetize him like YouTube have done. And then when Rumble hit back specifically, then the UK government threatening to use Ofcom to block Rumble from the UK and even arrest the proprietors if they step on UK soil. So when I first said something smells fishy here and there's a bigger picture, people were criticising me, standing up for this guy who's committed the R word, etc. But hasn't the actions of the British government and the threats to Rumble and now the threats to Ofcom, haven't they outed themselves that there is a big picture here? And I'll start with Jay.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, my first thought was, if you go back maybe 10 years ago, my buddy Patrick Henningsen and I, we were doing a lot of articles at that time about the idea of trial by media, that what big tech wanted to do in the near future was to be able to basically bypass the legal protections that everybody has for their speech and have basically just whatever the mob and the media say be your trial and your conviction, guilty until proven guilty, right? And so in that regard, I think that this just bears out that trend. It reminds me too of the Johnny Depp case, because in that situation, I think the expectation was that Johnny Depp was going to be, he would lose that case. Amber Heard would be vindicated, because we all know you got to believe all women. Women are always truth tellers. They never make up stories. They never lie. And that didn't go the way everybody expected. So I think there's beginning to be a trend where people are kind of realizing, hey, maybe we shouldn't believe all women. Maybe women can lie too. I'm not saying that in the case of the Russell Brand situation. We don't know. These are old allegations from a long time ago. We had originally a news outlet that was doing an investigation. There hadn't been complaints to the police yet, which I think was really suspicious, in my opinion. But like you're saying, my first thought was, well, but he hasn't actually been in a court case yet. So this was exactly the attempt to bypass, the normal legal means of how you would go about convicting somebody. And that proves the point that we've been making, right? And then in response, everybody is like, oh, why are you trying to defend a rapist? You must love her. No, it's not like that at all. It's like, I want to protect my own speech down the road, everybody else's speech, right?
Yep, Charlie.
Well, he's getting the treatment. This is what you get when you talk about the, I think we talked about this last week. You want to talk about Bigfoot? You want to talk about interdimensional aliens? You want to talk about Elvis eating ding dongs at a grocery store? All day long. All day long. There's no problems with misinformation, disinformation, or any of that stuff. But the minute you start talking about the truth, the actual truth, the real truth, then all of a sudden we've got to drag up allegations from 20 years ago. We've got to throw this back in your face. This is what they do, not because he's guilty. Maybe he is. Maybe this is part of some elaborate scheme that he's devised 20 years in the making to protect himself, as I have heard suggested, which is preposterous, right? Or maybe the powers that be don't appreciate an articulate, very reasonable, very logical guy with a massive platform talking about the things that they're doing that they don't want you to know about. Have we considered that, right? So again, look at Julian Assange. Different sort of case, but they threw the R word at him. No evidence. It doesn't matter if there's evidence. It doesn't matter. It is a show trial for your integrity. You are put on trial and tried in the court of public opinion. And as Jay said, guilty until found guilty, right? It doesn't even matter if they get to the end, if there is some sort of trial, which there won't be, but if there were some trial and he were found not guilty in a Johnny Depp sort of way, or it came out that the story was completely different than what had been reported. Will there be any apologies from the media? No. Will there be any? It'll just be on to the next. If they, maybe mistakes were made, as Rumsfeld would say. Maybe. More than likely, they won't even say that. They'll just be on to the next thing as they distract. But this is exactly what happens when you talk about the things that they don't want you to talk about. They will try to, if they can't shut you up by proving that you're lying about those things, i.e., the what's going on in big pharma, what's going on with the banking system, what's going on in our government, what's going on in Ukraine. If they can't prove that you're lying about those things, because he's not, then they just discredit you. They just try to tarnish your reputation. This is not even a very complicated playbook, but when it happens, the general public act like goldfish. Like this is the first time they've ever considered that this might, oh, how dare you? You think they would drag this out? They're talking about, these are serious allegations. They would never make that up. Really? They wouldn't make that up? Can I show you a dozen examples where they've made it up in the past? I mean, how many times do you need to see this? But the public is so demoralized. I'm working on an episode about Yuri Bezmenov, talking about demoralization, and part of it comes into play with regard to the media, where they build up false heroes and then they destroy them. And part of this is to take your soul and say, I can't even believe anything anymore, man. I don't know what's going on. I used to think Russell Brand was cool. I used to think he was nice. He was in Get Him to the Greek. He was fantastic in that movie. I saw his stand-up. I saw his stand-up live in Las Vegas. You mean to tell me that, oh, well, what am I going to, I can't believe anything anymore. If Russell Brand is a bad guy who's doing all this stuff, then there's no hope for anybody. Gotcha, right? This is all part of a much bigger plan.
Yeah, when the Assange thing happened and I stood up for him, my girlfriend was mad at me. My sister was mad at me. My parents were mad at me. It was like I was challenging women's rights and siding with an R-word person. And that all got dropped in 2019, and it's proven it's been BS. So there's so many parallels with Assange here. And Jay, I want to ask you, what is an intelligence agency operation, a moral outrage campaign? What's that about?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think if you look back to Mockingbird, I've been diving into that pretty deep lately. There's a good book by Wilson called The Mighty Wurlitzer, and this was how the CIA really controlled the media during the Cold War period. The argument from their side was, well, we've got to control the narrative and 400 plus journalists throughout the world, or else the Soviets, the communists, can take over the airwaves, and they'll influence everybody with their disinformation. And that included not just bribing, but it also in some cases included blackmailing people in the media. So the control of the media throughout that period was extensive. And it was everything you could think of. It was, can we just buy this journalist off, or this media person, or this TV presenter? Could we just play on their patriotism and get them to do it out of pure, jingoism? Can we get them to and if they wouldn't go along, the threats could get more extensive. Like, well, you remember that girl that you slept with, 2-3 years ago that your wife doesn't know about. So they're very adept at looking into the past of a person to figure out when there might have been an some indiscrepancy or some indecency. And they will actually approach people in people's past and get them to go along with it. So I don't know if that's the case here, but it is. It does have all those same similarities. It also makes me think of the Kavanaugh situation when Trump suggested Kavanaugh be appointed. Immediately, women come forward saying, "Oh, back in college, I was raped." Of course, that turned out to be bogus. Those were bogus claims. Assange, great example. And this is just this is a repeated pattern. Also, in the case of Alex, when Alex was, I think they probably tried to go this route with Alex, but they found other means, other situations of events to go after him. They tried this recently with Trump, as we know, with the lady who said, 20 years ago, I was accosted in a dressing room and nobody saw it, but trust me, it happened. And by the way, RAPE is really hot and women all love it. That kind of discredited her when she said that. So again, what we find is the pattern of this. Very suspicious, very reminiscent of the whole, I don't want to use these terms on YouTube, but you know what I mean, where we have previous people who came out famously in the news and had big trials, and their whole operation, as everybody knows, was about blackmailing powerful people. Jeff Stein, McCaffrey, you might figure out who I'm talking about. Those kinds of operations, right, are black.